or a big data engineer role unless you have prior software development experience. Now, understand that data engineering and data science are, although related, but fairly separate domains in terms of the skills that you require. And data engineering is more on software, on DevOps, on deployment, monitoring, etc. Not so much on data analysis and visualization. So you should not be applying for data engineer roles. And you'll realize this if you read job descriptions carefully. You should also not be applying for machine learning engineer roles just immediately, unless, again, unless you have extensive software development experience. So that's
now I can't hear you.
Piece here. If you have software development experience, then you can try and approach a machine learning engineer role as well. But if not, I would keep to a data analyst or a junior data scientist role. You will see roles like AI researcher or AI practitioner, ML researcher, deep learning researcher.
Okay.
I would avoid those roles unless you have done ideally a PhD
right,
in the
let's try this.
or you've got a master's degree in data science and machine learning. If you want a PhD or a master's
degree,
let's do this. Yep.
Research
project,
bring us in. Ideally a published paper, but if not, at least a couple of research projects where you've tried to push the state of the art by exploring new techniques or maybe implementing
I think
papers
we are good to go
come out recently.
On the live Q&A.
Applying for this role.
I am in a different room than the person who is running this, so I'm going to hope that that's true. Thanks so much for your presentation today, Aaron. We really appreciate it.
Any senior or
lead
or
you bet. We have one question that has popped up already in the Q&A. So let's take a look. Aaron Infosec asks, are there best practices for segmenting and protecting home networks to avoid or mitigate IoT vulnerabilities?
Product analyst, decision analyst.
That's a great question, actually. So something I was working on.
So that's the roles that you should target.
Very relevant.
Now let's talk about
how to acquire. So I pulled out one of my checkpoint gateways and decided, all right, I'm going to repurpose this to segment my network a little bit better. I have,
so there are a couple of things here.
At this point, 70 to 80 probably IoT devices, both for testing and just because I'm too lazy to press a button on the wall to turn a light on and off. So my idea was, hey, I need to segment these as best I can. So the way I'm gonna set it up is a dedicated wireless access point where everything routes back through my gateway here at home. And then I can actually use segmentation there based off of the policy. So I can say security cameras can only talk to this, Echo type devices, I won't say her name, but they can only talk to that sort of thing. I know not everyone has probably a checkpoint gateway sitting in their home, but there's some awesome open source tools out there as well.
As I mentioned, you need
open source firewalls, things like pfSense and such that you could download, put it on some spare hardware and be able to segment your network. So I would definitely recommend it. Keep your, especially if you have like me, like a storage server or important things sitting on your network, keep those segmented away from these third-party gadgets that are popping up all over Amazon.
This means you need to know tools like
that is excellent advice. Thank you. So to go back to the AI part of your talk, which is really interesting, when we talk about AI, the validity of what comes out of your AI depends on the data that you feed it. And you mentioned data a little bit and having the right amount of it. How do you make sure that even though you have a lot of data, that it is the right kind of data for your training set?
Oh man, I feel like that's like the question everyone's trying to answer. I think a lot of it, if you probably saw in one of the slides that talks about domain expertise. So whoever's providing the data or combing through this data and pushing it into the model, into the engines, they need to have that domain expertise to say, hey, this is good quality data. We've been personally, just for Checkpoint, speaking for Checkpoint, we've been collecting what we call our threat cloud intelligence feeds for years. This is stuff that's fed from for all of our customers that opt in, which is around 100,000 customers. They opt in to share telemetry data with us. We know that this is solid data because it's coming from our security solutions, and we know we've made a determination on those solutions. And of course, it does take. I think it's important to have analysts, well-trained analysts, doing kind of like spot checks, jumping in occasionally and saying, hey, okay, is this correct? Did we render the right conclusion?
So we're going to share a bunch of resources
our our threat or sandboxing technology that provides a lot of this. It has a very high accuracy rate. It's in the like 98, 99% percentile. So using that data, we know it's good quality data, but of course it takes, we need to jump in occasionally and look and validate it, make sure it's solid, because a machine learning algorithm or model or artificial intelligence that results from that is pretty much worthless if it's not quality data, if it's been learning the wrong thing the entire time.
Right, yeah, and not even just worthless, but sometimes dangerous if it's trained on the wrong types of activities and it can't discern the things you want.
Absolutely.
Right. And so you probably don't, given the amount of data that you have and the fact that it's validated, you probably don't have to get into simulated data very much, is my guess.
I would assume not. Now, I'm definitely going to say I'm not our machine learning scientist or our data scientist and such. So some of that information, I'm not privy to. I'd love to be, but some of it's kind of, tightly controlled. But I believe they do simulate quite a bit. We have honeypots all over the world that we're collecting data from too, and we're able to take those samples from those honeypots. Whether it's files attempted to upload to a completely fake web server, we're able to grab those. We also work with a lot of our industry partners, even our competitors. We share a lot of intelligence, so we can take different data sets and different either malignant or benign files, and then test our intelligence or our models against it.
Excellent. Yeah. So I'm wondering, we talk about the benefits of AI a lot. Do you think there are areas where human expertise will stay ahead of the machine curve, I guess is one way to say it? Where do you think humans are going to stay better than machines, if there are any areas in this particular domain?
Yeah, so I would liken this to, if you go back 10, 15, 20 years, people were saying robots are going to replace us all, for the workforce. It still hasn't happened. I still don't think it's going to happen. There's times when human intervention or our expertise, our creativity, I don't think you can replicate that via an AI. If you think of the most powerful attacks that we've seen thus far, they're not artificial intelligence driven. They might have been tested using machine learning in some way, or they came up with some cooler ideas with it, but it still requires human ingenuity. I think that's always going to be necessary. I think the computers can be the horsepower, be able to, they can handle that amount of throughput and make decisions very quickly. But completely eliminating humans from that factor or from that process, I think we're always going to be needed to dive a little bit deeper, make those correlations and such. But I think AI, I think the biggest benefit that we're seeing from it is it's reducing the noise. There's a commonly we say, like alert fatigue among analysts. And I think the biggest benefit that comes from artificial intelligence and machine learning is the ability to reduce that noise so that they're only seeing the things that are truly, important for them to be able to dive deeper into and use their human brain to render a decision.
Right. Yeah, we talk a lot about this as tipping and queuing is kind of the military phrase of, can you provide a better set of, more signal to the noise so that a human can take that and make some kind of an operational decision with it? Because while AI is great at understanding the past landscape through the data that it's trained on, it may not be able to apply that to an updated context where it doesn't have the full picture.
Exactly. I think it'll be interesting to see like the evolution of artificial intelligence over the years, over the next, because we're at the very, very cusp of what I think AI can truly do. I mean, if you liken it to, some of the cars that are using it or the devices that are listening in my house right now, sometimes I tell them to do one thing and she'll tell me, yes, the weather's great today. It's 62 degrees outside. And I'm like, I asked you to turn off the light, but all right, thank you. But I think over time, it's going to become much more powerful.
Right. And that actually leads into my next question was, where do you think the next steps of this are going to be, particularly when it comes to ransomware, either on the defensive or offensive side?
That's interesting. I mean, obviously, I highlighted in the presentation, which I think was the most interesting part, and I'll definitely, make sure that a high quality version goes out for everyone so you can see what was happening inside of VS Code with Copilot. But
yeah, we apologize for that.
Oh,
I think we had an upload error on our side.
No problem. Hey, it smoothed out my skin, so it was nice. No, but I lost my train of thought. Let me pull it back. Remind me one more time. Where were we going with
where you see the next interesting evolutionary steps in using AI and ransomware, whether it's using it for defense against ransomware, or maybe where adversaries would be using it offensively.
Well, I think I'm not a Rust programmer by any means. Like I know a bit of TypeScript, and that's kind of like where I've stayed. HTML, I can do that all day. But I'm really not a Rust programmer by any stretch of the imagination. But by just creating that comment and telling it like, hey, here's a general function I want you to perform, it spit it out and it works. I actually was able to test it later on and see like, okay, can this function encrypt a directory on a Windows machine? And it did work. So if that's me with very little knowledge of the language, and I don't have a computer programming background, someone that does have that kind of knowledge, what can they do with it? How will it create something brand new for them? I'm not sure, but it could speed up their time to actually deploy ransomware in the first place. I think on the other side of that, think about defense. That's the part that I'm really interested in. Is I'm hoping that over time, like right now, our anti-ransomware checkpoint, and this is not a sales pitch, but it's true. It's 99.73% effective, or with like as far as the catch rate. So if it has the ability to be there, like we need to bump it up a little bit further, and we're going to continually improve as we improve our machine learning models and feed it more quality data. I think over time that will improve. But I don't know. I think there's a lot of cool, like very interesting applications that could come out of this. But I think it's important that we recognize that if we have the tools, the malactors do too.
It's that game of leapfrog that we've been doing for decades and will keep doing in security in the future.
Hey, it's job security for everyone on here, right? So. Not advocating for it. I'm just saying it's job security for us all. Oh, did I lose you?
So, Aaron, thank you again for a really interesting talk and a conversation. And we appreciate you being part of CactusCon this year.
Thank you. Hopefully, maybe I'll even be able to attend in person next year. I would love that.
It would be the dream. Yeah. Well, we're got all our fingers crossed for that next year as well. Great.
Absolutely.
Well, thanks so much, Aaron.
It's a wonderful event. You guys take care.
Thanks. You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.